whoa.
What did I walk into?
Whoa. I do not play Minecraft.
First of all, I have severe unmedicated attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and by page 8, all I wanted to do was play Minecraft.
I'm in college. That's one excuse.
Only 2 of us finished the book, Kaden.
Oh,
Hey,
I got almost 50 pages in. I at least read... That's almost a quarter.
I read the abstract.
Devin, you're canceled.
Uh-oh.
You're the most homophobic of us all. What do you mean?
You
Can't even read about gay people? Come on.
Well,
I'm sorry if it was like, 3 paragraphs.
to be fair, the book's not about gay people.
I'm
Look,
recording, by the way.
It's about straight people.
It's
And how
about
they're kinda
Devin
gay.
not wanting to read about gay people.
No,
He just
no,
doesn't want
no.
to confront his latent homosexual desires.
According to the... Yeah, it's like the foot fetish thing. According to...
What?
According to the abstract, the book was about how straight men want to engage in sexual activities with other men, and right?
But without it being gay.
Yeah.
They want a little bit of the dude.
And it's
So-
about the way we
It's purely sexual.
frame being with the bros without actually being gay.
And it's also like, dude, I guess we should probably structure this if we're going to actually start talking about the book.
Do we want to do, like, first impressions?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll start there.
Who-
I'll go last since I finished first.
Oh,
Damn.
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 Bold.
Devin.
All right.
And I can also correct the 2 who did not.
Yeah, Chris. Anyways,
I guess we
What?
already kind of got Devin's impressions.
I
Can you
honestly,
about recap since I wasn't here?
I think so just from the abstract and the looking at the book, I did not expect it to be as much of an essay as it was. Like from the cover, I was expecting it to kind of be like Mimi. I was expecting it to be like just like a bromance, like I was really expecting it to be not take itself too seriously. Yeah, and I think honestly, like the choice of picture, if Ryan has it up right now, the choice of picture really gives a different feel than what I think it's gonna go into. Like I didn't expect it to be as serious as it is.
Really?
Mhm.
Oh.
Well, I guess I'm next then. I expected it to be like a serious paper, but I didn't expect it to be basically a long drawn out Twitter thread.
That's a really good way to put it.
That's kind of what it felt like to me. I think I got to like page 30 something and I was like, this could have just been like a series of tweets and that would have been fine. But I guess she couldn't have made money off of that.
And I think it says at the end she mentions she's a professor, so she really needs money.
Yeah.
Damn.
And I'm not like,
Most education ain't paying.
I'm not bashing her for that. I'm just...
No. I want to disagree with you, but I also, can't. Because there was, especially so after the first chapter, probably up until page, 150? No, it was 120. Up until, that whole chunk, I felt like that could have been halved. There was kind of a lot of filler at some point. But, let me tell you, once we got to that chapter... Oh, what chapter? Because she's talking...
Average
chapter
dudes,
4.
Casual encounters?
Yeah, she starts talking about a certain film, which I think's interesting, and then she starts talking about Craigslist ads, which we can talk about that later, but once I got to that point, I was kind of glued. That part was really interesting to me.
Yeah, I will also segue talking about Christie's into my opinion, my first impressions. It's there was definitely the start of it. I'm like, this is whatever. I guess it's cool. And then there's definitely a moment later on in the book. I'm like, oh, I'm in. This is super interesting. And I was kind of started off with Devin. I thought it was a meme book, kind of like a Chuck Tingle type. I was like, it's gonna be funny, like funny, just kind of bit book. And then I'm like, yes, I too have taken an intro. Pardon me, Chris. An intro into gender studies.
Yeah, it's oh, I don't know. Like, I'm looking at it, and I feel like I've seen book covers like this for college classes. I don't know. I'm kind of surprised. I didn't really think it'd be a meme. I don't really get that vibe. It definitely, like, I look at it, I'm like, yeah, I can see how this is kind of funny.
I think it's definitely a byproduct of reading a lot of Chuck Tingle stuff, where I'm just kind of like, my immediate response is like, it's kind of like a like homosexual but joking tone. I'm like, yep, this is a Tingle. But I definitely I enjoyed it. I think it was incredibly interesting, and as someone who is both bi and experienced in both the genders intimately, it is definitely kind of an interesting look, as not only confirms my sexuality, but how other people I have interacted with it makes contextualizes a lot of interactions I've had.
Interesting.
That too, like, also as a bisexual, at the end-ish, she talks about, is that the last chapter? The last couple chapters where she's talking about the notion that the gay is genetic. And I've never, it sounds stupid, but I've never actually, thought about that. Like, I heard that at some point when I was a teenager and was like, okay, that sounds fine. And I just kind of went with that. This book did definitely, make me rethink a lot of stuff. Like, oh, why do I identify as this? Especially if we're going along with this and not necessarily agreeing with the idea that it's genetic. It wasn't, a huge part of the book, but that definitely was an aside where I was just like, oh, I should rethink things.
That was also definitely something I wanted to talk about. Not necessarily that, but just randomly, Miss Jane Ward is the author, by the way. I don't think we mentioned it. I wasn't here for the intro, for the opening, sorry. But she would randomly kind of sprinkle in other topics, other things. I'm like, I want to learn about that now. That was super interesting. And she mentioned something else within queer gender studies, and I'm like, that sounds super interesting. One of the things the historical homosexuality in New York, specifically in the immigration houses of Italian and Jewish people who were fleeing Europe at the time in the early 1900s. And I'm like, that sounds super interesting. I want to talk more about that. And it'd be like, oh, we're moving on from there. Back to frat boys.
Yeah, that was, I mentioned it before too, what was hard for me to get into this book is she opens with the hazing, and then what was difficult to finish about the book is that she ends with the hazing, and that's really hard for me to read, especially with attached photographs. I did not handle that very well.
See, the nice thing is I had an audiobook. I listened to the audiobook because I have a long drive to work at the moment, so I didn't have to see anything. It was just kind of
Described.
It was actually honestly, it's pretty. It's almost a comedy when you're listening to it.
It's
because the absolute wonderful voice actress who read it would just say things like I can't even think of a specific quote, but stuff like the elephant walk, where men put their penises in their mouth and whatever, and just said super dry and straight, and I'm just it killed me so much. I also got one of my favorite quotes from the book, an entirely just throwaway line, but emotional support twink.
Emotional support twink?
What's the context for that?
I don't remember is also the problem, because
I'm pretty sure that was the part where she's talking about the bathroom. It's the second or third chapter. It's about basically how there's a large section of straight men that would use public restrooms to hook up with other straight men, basically.
But it was you would have one who is kind of the situation the way I believe the story that was told was there was a I think it was New York. It was a metropolitan area, and there was a set of restrooms that one could go. Straight white men, identifying straight white men who had wives, children, all that stuff, would go and receive oral sex from men, and it was kind of like a glory hole, effectively. You get in, you get out. And there was also another kind of interesting like tidbit, like another thing. It was like she kind of mentioned something. I'm like, oh, I want to talk more about that. That sounds interesting. But this was done another study by another gender studies individual, and they got their tips for like where are the best places to find this was from a cop.
Mm-hmm.
And because he was like, yeah, you want to go to this one, but not this one. There's a bunch of hard R's there that we're cracking down on. And like
Yeah.
it's very briefly talked about how like perceived homosexuality was fine as long as it was not interracial.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's something. So like something I was weirded out by is that on the cover it says straight white men specifically, and I was like, why is it just white guys? But I find it's
Oh,
interesting
don't
that
worry.
She actually,
There's a whole
she's-
there's a whole section that kind of goes over that.
I've gone through some of it where she kind of talks about the reasons why, and I thought that was interesting.
Would you like to kind of clarify on that, Chris? Or Ryan, either?
Go ahead.
Go
Chris-
more into detail, more so.
Chris actually finished the book, so
That was the one part it's kind of hard to describe because from what the best I can say is that like there's a cultural difference between like how to say it, like there's a different perception with men of color. Can't remember exactly how she said it, but like there's even like its own phrase for it.
The down low.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
down low. So like it's kind of its own standalone, I wouldn't call it standalone thing, but it should be examined differently.
yeah, because I think
Okay.
she was describing how there's different, not cultural implications, but like there's a different kind of like society that's been, I guess, pressed upon
Mm-hmm.
men of color that are straight but not straight. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, I mean-
from what I
Yeah, that's
understand, it like part of it comes from the way that like white culture perceives black culture,
Mhm.
culture, like people of color. From what she
There was a really
explaining.
good. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that was about it.
There was, to kind of piggyback on to talking about that, there was a really good quote. I don't remember it verbatim, but it was effectively a politician was caught soliciting oral from a black man, and his cover to like, oh, it wasn't gay. I'm not gay. It's not a thing. Was that he was afraid of the black man
Yeah.
who was his like office official and clearly in a subversive place of power, like under him. But he still used that card to like,
Yeah.
it's not my fault. It's this. It's
It-
this.
Didn't he say he was like, oh, I offered to do it because I thought he was going to rob me?
I think the exact quote
Jesus.
was like, he was a scary black man, was like the direct quote.
Yeah, and then there was another politician. So a politician in Mississippi, he had gotten caught before like having sex with gay men. Like he was having sex with men, got caught, but they were white. So he was like, oh, I've gone to conversion therapy, and me and my wife have worked it out. It's all great now. And everyone still loved him. But then, not much longer later, he got caught again, but this time it was with a black man. And he was in the submissive role, I guess I can say it like that. And public opinion immediately flipped on him.
Jeez.
So it's like, while this was definitely a study of the like white aspect of culture, there is a very much another book that could be written about the
Yeah.
interracial.
Which I kind of wanted to read that book.
Yeah, no, I mean, this book was incredibly interesting. It was very intriguing. Like, there was definitely a lot of stuff in the bottom half when it started getting more into the military, and then the Hell's Angel part. I thought was incredibly interesting.
They talk about the
Two.
Hells Angels.
Yeah, the Hell's Angels.
Yeah.
The Hell's Angels was actually kind of a brief aside in it, talking about how they would pretty willingly like wear they're not gay. Like they would point out in interviews and everything, they're like, oh yeah, we're super straight, but it's like you kiss your boys. And my personal favorite writer of all time, Mr. Hunter S. Thompson, wrote a book on Hell's Angels, and where he immersed himself in the culture. And he kind of like talked about it. Oh yeah, please go ahead.
I want to read, like, you'll probably have to censor it because it's very gross, but like there's a paragraph included in here on page 67 where he's talking about here, I'll just, for instance, Thompson quotes a San Francisco Hells Angels describing his enthusiastic willingness to have sex with men for $10.
Jeez.
And just, it shouldn't be funny, but it kind of is. But basically, this guy just comes up to him, he lays a 10 down, and he says, "What do you want to drink?" And then he orders, and then the guy just blows him at the bar.
At the bar?
Yeah. He said the guy just sat on the bar rail and blew him. It's like, what?
Also the way the dude described it, he was like super enthusiastic. It's really good.
He's so excited about this $10 BJ he got, and you know what? Good for him.
It's like, it's amazing too, because he's like, it's the best ever. Like, I had $10 and I'm getting this quality.
Oh.
Hell yeah, man.
The quote from the other day, "Man, I'd go underwater and fuck fish for that kind of money. You just tell me who's paying."
Yeah, the Hell's Angel stuff was super interesting because Hunter S. Thompson, like, he immersed himself for the book, a separate book, an expose and kind of like a biography of the Hell's Angels. And like he mentioned, the kissing thing is it was kind of like to rebel. Like, it's a bunch of like tough post-World War men. You know, they're tough as nails, rough and tumble, rebelling against society. And so obviously they like even leaned into like kissing another man to rebel against the heteronormative society at the time, the Puritan society.
I'm gonna kiss
literally. But Hunter S. Thompson made a note that when like they claimed it was just kind of like haha owning the normal people. But then someone kissed him, like a Hell's Angel member kissed him when he came into one of the bars, and he was kind of like, "What?" I was like, "Did I sign on to this?" And they immediately like were super cold to him. So it's kind of like maybe like kind of a like brotherhood initiation or brotherhood rite, which again ties back into the central theme of the book, which is the heteronormativity and heteroflexibility of white straight men. And so if we're going to go into the main, if we want to kind of segue into the main themes, we can do that real quick.
Sure.
So basically I would describe the book like at its base, it is about heteronormativity in white men and heteroflexibility in white men.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically the target audience being frats, military, and other like air quotes hypermasculine dude spaces. Yeah, brotherhoods. It's there's a really good quote. I wish I had wrote it down, you know, while I was driving in my car listening to the audiobook, wrote it down. That basically it's like the performative nature of the homosexual acts onto lesser members like rushers, people trying to be in the frat. The goal is to do these acts and then pretend that it's like you're repulsed and you hate it, and it's a form of heterosexual resiliency, is kind of the way she phrased it. Like, it's an act to be resisted so you're stronger and you're a brother.
Yeah, like you do it and you come out straighter somehow.
Yeah, I'm straight because I managed to do this and not get a boner. I did not get turned on.
Yeah, it's like I may have climaxed, but it was entirely, you know,
because it was
straight way.
Yeah. No, because I was supposed to.
Yeah, it's like that was the
I
point.
Get into the frat, you know.
And go ahead.
I'm trying to find the spot, but like also at the same time she talks about the stuff with the Navy and the, what do you call it, logs, like the stuff, the horrible hazing they would do to logs. I
really, really wish my Navy buddy wasn't going dark because of all the Ukraine stuff, because I would have loved to ask him about that.
Oh my god, it's actually horrible. Like,
yeah, it's genuinely like I was like I just like it was like I not that I ever was like wanting to join the Navy, but I was like, man, I'm really never joining the Navy.
And what like baffled me about that is that I remember there being a quote somewhere from someone that did it, and he was like, "Yeah, it's great." Well,
this was awesome. A gay man. Pardon.
Was it?
Yeah, the dude who was like super into it was a gay man. He was like, "Yeah, this is awesome. Like, I mean, I get to like be kinky with a bunch of like hot dudes.
That's
like,
right.
What's not to love?" And then there was also a straight man. The straight men are always like, this is miserable, this is literally sexual assault, but I gotta do it to be stronger and to join the brotherhood. And the gay dude's like, this is epic, I'm having a great time right now.
Oh.
So I guess now that we kind of just poise the main themes, I guess Devin and Ryan, if you guys have anything, any questions or anything you'd like kind of like talk around.
Let me see. Let me pull open my notes here.
So that's a really interesting part. I really want to hear y'all's thoughts on. You mentioned there's a big section devoted to like Craigslist ads.
Yeah.
Not a big section, but definitely a section.
And I remember hearing back in the day about how like people would post like in Craigslist like the looking for ads, and like they were all about sexual favors. And I had a friend who actually did that for like older women through Craigslist. So I'm really interested to hear about how it ties into that.
Specifically, the Craigslist ad was always it was like basically boiled down to straight man looking for another straight man to just kick back, drink some beer,
Just
talk
be
about
bros.
women, just be
Yeah.
boys being boys.
Yeah, like a lot of them start out like they're looking like this one. Any hot white jocks looking to get sucked off? 3 question marks.
No females.
Yeah, like seeking a masculine jack off bud to
Gotta
straight
be straight though,
porn.
no gays.
No gays. We want jocks. We want hot guys. Oh, there was one. God, I gotta find it. It killed me. It shouldn't be funny, but there was one that kind of was like, what happened to dudes just sitting in a circle and jerking off? Like, what happened to the good days of
The good days of
dudes
the circle
circling?
jerk.
Oh,
The
man,
circle
I
jerk.
completely forgot, you know?
I'm trying so hard to find it.
It's like those old rituals like they talk about where like dudes would circle jerk and you know they're coming on a cracker. It's
oh,
like
a cookie,
yeah,
yeah.
soggy
Ugh.
waffle. Did they bring up soggy waffle?
Yes,
they call
and
it
they actually
cookie
Soggy
cookie.
biscuit.
and that it's primarily in British British school system is where it was mainly.
Mhm.
because that's definitely got to be in the same ballpark as straight men wanting to have sex with a straight man.
Yeah, because it's like
It's
It's-
mentioned.
Well,
it's
that's
brought
kind
up.
of like the whole point of everything. Is that straight guys will do not straight things because they're not completely straight, and then
Well, that's the
find
thing.
ways
It's
of making it seem like they're straight.
well, that's also the thing. Is at the end of the book, she kind of wraps around. It's like, yeah, they're probably if they say they're straight, probably straight.
Oh yeah, that's another thing I noticed, that she said that early on in the book too, and I was surprised, but I was like pleasantly surprised she said that. That she
Because
wasn't
it's like
trying to like argue against it.
So do
she
you,
also go ahead.
do you think it's men like wanting to explore their sexuality and then like deciding, hey, I don't think this is for me, or is it just like
The conclusion she got to in the book was that, like, just innately, dudes banging dudes is like it is that is a straight thing to do. Like, it is a completely normal thing for 2 men to do.
okay?
Because it's not like. I also really liked how she phrased being queer. Like, being queer was more so like it's not just, oh, I like men or I like women. It's I am this lifestyle. I am within this existence.
Yeah, cause
So it's like, go ahead.
I was just gonna say she phrased it as like identifying as gay means that you have to acknowledge that you're not straight.
Mm-hmm.
You don't exist in the realm of straight, so to speak.
And it's also, she also did clarify that, like, straight, homosexual, bisexual, whatever, is a incredibly difficult thing to actually, like, nail down and give a definition to. Like, gender studies scientists have been trying to find, like, an accurate definition, air quotes, of what straight, gay, homosexual even is.
Yeah, like there's a whole section talking about like how heterosexuality is actually kind of a modern invention too.
Mm-hmm.
I probably won't summarize it very well, but basically like some dudes, what, in the mid 1800s. They kind of like started pinpointing like heterosexual, and even like some of the original definitions, like I think the first definition of heterosexuality in the Merriam-Webster, I think it said like a morbid attraction to people of the opposite gender. Like it not framed as like a good thing, and then at some point, I think basically some scientist did a study and he was like, hey, it's kind of natural for people to be straight because that makes babies. Which, yeah, but that's kind of like been the prevailing thought, and that's kind of how we get here today. I kind of wish she would have been able to talk more about like historical how to say it, like historical sexuality, because I remember when I took my Shakespeare class, he actually set aside a whole day to talk about like masculine relationships in Shakespeare's time, and how it was pretty normal to like be super into your dude friends, like fucking your dude friends.
Also,
but...
like, oh, go ahead. I have a quick aside, like, kind of as like how two quick asides on like how sexuality between men have evolved over the years.
No, go ahead.
One is way far back. Is the Sacred Band of Thebes, which was literally an army made of gay men. Like just straight up, it was dudes who loved their husband, and they fought stronger because they didn't want their husband or themselves to die. And like that was a celebrated Greek army. Like it wasn't weird. It wasn't necessarily weird. And like Greek and Rome have always had a thing where it's like to be penetrated was the problem, not to be gay. It was like it was to be the submissive was the issue rather. Which I think is incredibly interesting and has kind of like definitely has some like connotations for a lot of the themes brought up in the book, in where if you were going to do the if you were going to have sex between two straight men, it's like you wanted to be the dominant. It's like the submissive was always looked down upon. It was always the like.
Yes, they should be.
Heard no bottoms allowed in this Discord.
Wait.
No bottoms.
Hold on. What about power bottoms?
No.
Well,
Anyways,
power
as you were
bottoms,
saying,
I would.
Kaden, before
Yes, go
someone
ahead.
rudely interrupted Devin.
But yeah, so like how a lot of it is like you have to be the submissive before you're the dominant, and being the submissive bad, being the dominant is good regardless of sexuality. And then secondly, I totally forgot my second point I was gonna make. Thanks for that, Devin.
Ugh,
That's
sorry.
okay. It's always Devin's fault.
What was it? What was it? Oh Lord, have mercy.
You were talking about how being the submissive was bad.
I was finished with that point. How in like historical like relationships between men were fairly normal, and even like a mentor-mentee relationship was physical. But the second point I wanted to bring up was that we'll come back to it. Maybe it'll pop into my head. I feel so bad because it was a really good point. I was like, oh, this would be really interesting to talk about. I've just
It's
gone.
okay. But
I
like,
should also
I'm
mention
sorry.
I literally got off work, drove an hour in traffic, and immediately joined Call and Joy and started talking to us. I'm a little scatterbrained.
that's okay.
Hey, I'm always scatterbrained.
But the second part to the point I was making is like, even back like in the Shakespeare time where it wasn't necessarily frowned upon to like fuck your guy friends. The problem was like you said, like being submissive or feminine even. The other problem would be like staying committed to it for your whole life. From what I understand, there was a lot of context for like it's something that you do when you're a young man, and then once you're older, you stop that, and then you get a wife and you make babies. Doesn't matter if you like your wife, but you got to make babies at some point. And I mean, it's time is a circle. It always comes back to baby making, but like that is kind of the point, I guess.
That is like an interesting thing. Like as a race, we are predisposed away from homosexuality because homosexuality is quite literally how the race does not continue. And it's like because it's so socially ingrained, it becomes like a moral panic or a social panic when people are okay that, you know, dudes are doing with dudes. Whereas like literally genetically, as long as enough people are having babies, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah, well, and I think if I'm not mistaken, there's other species. I want to say lions. Lions will, like, there's two bro lions. They just kind of, you know, they just fool around a little bit. They're just bros being bros.
Boys being
And
boys.
apparently, it's not uncommon to see this in other species, which is why I think it's weird when people freak out about stuff like this.
It's because we're just two smart monkeys.
We are smart monkeys.
It's because there's a whole book written by God himself.
Oh shit, you're right, dude! I forgot about the God book.
It's not even like explicitly stated in the Bible, which is also the funny part.
Yeah, it's just easily, I don't know, misinterpreted, I guess.
Well,
It's also important to note that the modern Bible is a rewrite of a rewrite of a rewrite.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
literally what I was about to say. It went from like written in Hebrew to probably Greek, then to probably Latin, and then from Latin into German, and then from German into Old English, and now we've got a New English version of it. So that's like to assume that there's not some tomfoolery going on in there to begin with.
I mean,
not to mention the fact that people go to churches and then they have pastors tell them how to interpret this book that they haven't read. But I feel like
I'm not even.
That's a rant for another video.
Yeah, that's like that's a conversation for a different time. But I think it does tie into the norms or to the book a little bit, and just like how a big part of the book is how society does shape our view on these things, and where the theory of the book was basically like, yeah, it's a pretty like it is a pretty normal, okay thing to do when it's not like sexual assault that it usually ends up like. It's just where you complicate things so much.
Yeah.
Thinking now, I could be wrong. I don't remember her diving in too much to the religious part of it. Because I mean,
pretty much entirely absent.
Yeah, like she really only mentions like cases of politicians who have been caught having gay sex and then being like, "Oh no, it's fine. My church. I talked to my pastor. It's fine." Like, I feel like that's something that
indulgence from the Catholics.
I feel like that's something that could have been talked about more than it was.
But also, I don't think it's also like in the scope of specifically this book. It kind of makes sense why it wasn't really brought up, because that's not really what this book's about. Like, it's very much about the culture surrounding like highly masculine men in which they produce.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead. I was kind of doing that.
I feel like it like you could make the argument. I feel like it kind of ties into like how men try to get away with it when it's public.
I think that's I do think that is like definitely.
But I don't think it's lost.
Yeah.
I think it would only add to it.
I think it would have been really interesting to see like it explored as to like why these men are so hesitant to have sex with other straight men.
It's also like there's also like it's a large part of it is to make it okay. There has to be a ritual. There has to be a performance beforehand, so it's okay. There's a large part of like
established that it's not gay. This
it's like it has to be. It's the wogs. It's a hazing ritual. It's two buds having some beers on the down low, which is also another thing.
One of us
the down low is
and the other one's penis ends up in the other one's mouth. Oopsie.
Oh no.
Hey, when that happens, I'm at work and I'm just like, oh, and someone's in my mouth again.
I just needed to show him a little something. Like I wasn't.
I was just kicking back, watching the game, having a beer.
I hate when I go to a bar and slide my bro a 10 and he misunderstands me and starts sucking my dick.
No, your bro pays you in that situation.
Oh, and I fellatiate him?
No, he gives you the 10, and then you receive both.
Suck my dick?
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Now you understand why that man was so excited. That Hell's Angel.
Oh, dude, I didn't expect. I didn't think he got paid. That's crazy.
Yeah, he got the 10, and or he got a drink. I
It doesn't really
You
specify.
got a
It just
bit of
kind of
both.
like
Yeah, a bit of both.
That's a one-stop shop. That's how it needs to be done.
But yeah, it's incredibly interesting. It's like I thought it was like it definitely like it took about it was about midway through the book when it started talking about like the Hell's Angels, basically getting away from the frat stuff that it got really interesting to me.
Yeah, it does kind of suck that I'm like, I can recommend this book, but like, you're only gonna like half of it.
Yeah, that's an issue I'm having because like she drags on quite a bit. Like there's a portion where she explains like the different definitions she's using, and like just from her using them in context, I already kind of knew what she meant when she said things like homosexual interactions versus being queer and stuff like that. So I kind of just skipped that whole in I skimmed that like 2 pages just to make sure that I didn't miss anything that I didn't understand, but like I don't know, she drags on quite a bit. And I'll probably try to finish it, but it's a slog.
I think
That was
it's
definitely
worth
one
it.
thing. Oh, go ahead.
I think it's worth trying to finish, but
Oh yeah, like unironically, I think it's super interesting.
Mhm.
I agree with Ryan. Like listening to an audio format, I'm like sitting in traffic as she's like re-explaining the same thing and for like or circling back to the same thing like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, I get it, Jane Ward. I'm aware.
At full volume in the Denny's parking lot at 2 p.m.
Basic
windows
5
down?
p.m. Pardon.
Oh,
I'm at work from
pulling into work.
yeah.
Listening
Yeah, literally,
about
I'm like
Hell's
pulling
Angels
into
blow
work. I
each
have like
other.
I have my coffee, like a little donuts. I'm like pulling into work. I have like 10 minutes before I have to go in, so I'm just like listening to her. I'm like, yeah, you tell him, Jane Ward.
Just window half down. Coworker walks
You're
past.
like-
I'm like, hey,
That's why it's totally okay to have. This is why straight white men have sex.
You're
with
like,
other
yo,
straight-
Alex, come check this out. Tell me what you think
Oh,
of this.
I do have a story about talking about the book. One of my coworkers is very like politically active, very like socially active. Like he's a very intelligent guy, and I'm just talking about it. And I'm also like half asleep, and I just kind of ramble about things when I'm not fully awake.
Yeah.
And so we're just talking, and I don't realize that he left. And so
Ooh.
I'm just talking to one of our other coworkers who's not really involved in this about like the intricacies of heterosexual and heteroflexible individuals like within like frats and thing, and she's just kind of like trapped there as I'm ranting about it. And I'm like, yeah,
She's
it's pretty
gonna
good. I
learn.
recommend it.
she's gonna learn something today.
She's gonna
Okay,
have
that's
to, whether she wants to or not.
Mm.
Caden's about to
And
take
also-
you to class.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny because afterwards I was like, I woke up a little bit. I'm like, ah, she really did not care about any of that, and I just kind of sat there talking for like 10 minutes because we were dead. Like there was nothing going on, so I'm like, I'm bored. Let's talk about the book I'm reading.
But I will say, and this is kind of an aside, but the reason like why you don't like why you had difficulty getting into it, Ryan, that's like it's a conversation that nobody wants to have, but
Yeah.
we should have about how the line between academic text needing to continue to be academic while also not being very I don't want to say accessible, but that's kind of the best word
Yeah.
for it. That's like a whole conversation for its own 3-part series, but it's a delicate line to tread,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Like,
no one
And-
does.
And that's why I went and skimmed over those 2 pages because like I recognize that for academic purposes she needs to define in her words what these words mean to her and how she's using them, but my brain no work good, so I was just gonna, if I can skip I was going to.
and as someone who's a bit of an academic maverick in his time, he's wrote a few published papers. I believe that like language, I have a little bit of radio paper, college papers. I can't talk, sorry.
You're fine.
I believe that the purpose of language is to communicate, and therefore a academic paper is still for the purpose of communication. I don't really see the point for stiff information or stiff like wording and information. I write how I speak, if that's any indication on how my papers go.
Yeah.
And like, for something like this, I agree.
Yeah, it's like there
Or-
was definitely like bit play later in the book when she was talking about like the Hell's Angels and like her more personal accounts. That was like, this is a lot more interesting. She's like
Mhm.
kind of inserting herself into the story, and there's a lot more conversational tone than it's more just pure academic as the first half. And it just is so much easier to get into.
Mm-hmm.
But please continue, Chris. I kind of cut you off there.
That's okay. Like I agree on something like this where, you know, she kind of does need to define like why she's saying homosexual sometimes and saying queer and gay the other times. Like stuff like that for clarification, so some noodlehead isn't writing maybe gay a response to Jane Ward's not gay and like basically trying to tear down her argument just because she didn't define it.
You fool.
Yeah, like it's also kind of like a preventive measure.
Yeah.
But I do have to say, like, just on terms of academics, there is like, unfortunately, an academic need to be stiff and annoying in your writing, and it sucks. It makes it difficult. It makes it feel like average people have to have some sort of college education to understand a lot of stuff that affects the real world every day. But it is kind of also like sad reality. Like with what I'm thinking of is like science. There's not
Yeah.
a good way to simplify that language. Like they have to use complex language to describe what they're doing. Otherwise, you know, a five-page paper could be 500 pages because they're trying to be simple. It's still easily misunderstood. But that, again, different video, different day.
Different conversation for different. I mean, it's relevant. The
Yeah.
talking about the writing style in a recommending. It's like I think I would 100% recommend this book to like pretty much anybody.
You just gotta be prepared to.
Yeah, you just,
You gotta
I feel like
strap yourself
most people could read this. High school level
in. Yeah,
reading.
I'll
could
agree
read
to that
this.
as well.
It's I'm gonna be also real with you. Some of it's real gross. There's some stuff that's
Oh,
mentioned
yeah.
that I'm just like, I was eating while I was listening to some of this. I'm like,
You didn't
Even-
like hearing her talk about the dudes shoving their thumbs up each other's assholes?
admittedly, that's not what bothered me. I was like, eh. It was like she talks about the WOG initiation ceremony where you have to like eat and pull stuff out of other dudes' asses, and
Oh,
I was like,
yeah.
Jesus
There's
Christ.
photos. You didn't even see the photos.
and I'm not looking.
I saw
Oh
that
my
Jackass
God.
was in the book.
Really?
Yeah.
There's a
That's
photo
awesome,
of
yeah.
Jackass.
Yeah,
they talk
she
about
mentions
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
She mentions they like did like specifically say like, yeah, we act gay sometimes. It was kind of funny to us to make the MTV generation like have to think about like us being stupid dudes, but then also like kissing each other on the lips and stuff, and like smacking each other's asses or whatever.
And they're right for it.
And they
It's
are.
like, it was kind of a cool parallel to the topic mentioned in Hell's Angels, where it's like it's kind of a rebel against polite society, whether it's well-meaning or not. It is still like we're still gonna like press these issues into the public eye, whether you like it or not. So because like we want to make you uncomfortable because you're the one who's wrong here.
It's kind of like this is not related to the book. Tangentially related. How like you guys know Judas Priest, right?
Yeah.
And you,
Yeah.
you know what Rob Halford looks like.
Yes.
Yes.
The leather daddy, Rob Halford. And it's tangentially related because like there's a lot of people who ended up dressing like him, thinking that it was like a biker thing they were going for. And
That's
really, it's like I said, he's a leather daddy. It's not like he's a biker. No, he's gay. That's the whole thing. And so they kind of like convinced an entire generation, probably several generations, of presumably many homophobes to dress like gay men.
It's so funny that you bring that up I remember when I was a kid, my older brother was super into Judas Priest. And, I mean, I won't say too much about it, but he's pretty right-leaning.
Yeah.
I remember one day, I felt so bad for my mom because she didn't really, like, know what to do, like, how to rectify the situation, but he was, like, kind of upset about it. He's like, Mom, I found out that the lead singer is gay. And he, like, just had, like, such a difficult time trying to, like, process that information. And, you know, I love my mom, but she also did not have the tools to process this information. So it was just kind of an awkward, like, yeah, sometimes people do that, Jake. And then
You couldn't tell?
You know, son, sometimes people are gay.
And then he took down his Judas Priest poster.
Oh, damn.
Dude.
That stopped him from being a Judas Priest fan? Damn.
I think he still listened, but he didn't keep the posters up.
I would have doubled down.
More posters.
Assless
I want
chaps.
Rob Halford on the posters
I'm
this
getting
time.
Rob Halford tattooed on my chest. I guess, is there any closing remarks anyone wants to make? I mean, I guess that's kind of what we've been on for a couple minutes now.
I think we've done a pretty good job about kind of wrapping it all up. Obviously, it's like,
formal.
yeah, it's not like a formal review. It's more, it's. I keep trying, like, in my head, I'm thinking of this as like, oh, it's a formal review. Like, this is something. This is a presentation I'd be doing for a class.
No.
When it's just a book club, we're just talking about a book we read.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think we did pretty good covering
For
the.
the first time, considering 50% of our crew here did not read it.
Yeah.
By
I
the way.
read a quarter of it.
I read an abstract.
That
Some-
doesn't count, Devin. I
Some
at
people
least
in this
opened the book.
Some people in this Discord call her Minecrafters, and it showed.
What the hell?
Yeah, right.
Christy's going after my disability again.
Ryan,
No.
RyRyinRed here put the screenshot of you renewing the Minecraft server.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did do
Yeah,
that.
it's update.
I was trying to rate it, and I'm like, oh, I just want to play Minecraft.
Thank you for reminding me to re-download it on this desktop.
No problem.
But yeah, I don't really have
Another
anything else. to think
Minecrafter,
of.
unbelievable.
Hey! I am an intellectual and a Minecrafter.
Okay.
I guess I'll just remind everyone that the next book is going to be. Hold on, I've got it right here. Oh God.
I'm gonna say it before you.
No.
I'm really looking forward to when we
Because
release
internet.
it.
No. Yeah, it's because internet understanding the new rules of language by Gretchen McCulloch, which I'm guessing is going to be similar to this one. But I feel
Probably.
like it'll be a little bit easier because there's funny memes in here. Whoa, Doge is in here.
Oh.
Yo!
You think this is
And
recent
Velociraptor.
Dogecoin?
No, I don't think it's that recent.
And there's lolcats in here.
Oh.
Oh my god.
Let's fucking go. See, so
'Cause-
there's gonna be funny little pictures in here.
'Cause if
Unlike
they
the
think-
not funny little pictures in the other one.
If they think the lowest the internet could go is like Doge, then
No, it's
they
just
clearly.
it's just highlighting the relationship between like the internet and how we talk now.
Are they gonna relate like Ugandan Knuckles? Because
Hmm,
I
Ugandan Knuckles
really.
here.
Might be too recent for that, but
Mm.
I do
There's
know.
Doge in here. I guess that's about it. Thank you if you've listened this far. I'm Ryan. You can find me on Twitter at RyRyinRed.
Mhm, mhm.
Who wants to go next?
I'm a degenerate. I'll go next. You could follow my Instagram post with hand. I'm Devin. I didn't read the book, but I'm here for moral support. Yeah. Subscribe to Power Punch Productions. Like and subscribe. Turn on the bell notification.
That should have been the last person, you
Yeah,
goof.
I was thinking about that.
We still got 2 more people to go,
Yeah,
Devin.
I
Come on.
guess me and Kaden don't exist. It's
No,
fine.
So we did our job, so
No,
therefore we're
whatever.
ostracized.
We're just
no.
lemmings, I guess.
Anyways,
You want to
Chris,
go
you
next,
wanna
Chris?
go?
Yeah.
Yeah, hi, I'm Chris. For all intents and purposes, I don't exist. I'll see you next time.
They do be here for the book club, though.
an entity.
And I
Email
am
scholar.
Kaden at PPP Kaden. I occasionally post, not really. My life's kind of a mess right now, but I'm working on it.
Hey,
I do
bro.
plan to, when we TM, this dates this video, when I finally manage to get a home again, I do plan on streaming and doing some voice work. I've been looking into audio setups and what have you. The goal is to, the thing I was talking to you, or randomly DM'd you about, Ryan, about getting a GIF, was I plan on doing a online radio, like a Twitch radio. So keep an eye out for that, dear listeners.
Exciting. Now
Yeah.
you say this is. Don't forget
Don't forget to like and
comment,
subscribe this video and hit the bell
I'm gonna
notification.
stop recording.